Hey, it's Gerry here. Quick one before we start. Head over to thisishcd.com and create your free account. Join nearly 1,000 members from around the world. Add yourself to the map. Search transcripts of every episode. Discover new ones and check out the journey management course that I teach with my good friend Mark Sticktorn. The link is in the show notes. That's thisishcd.com, helping people design a better world. Now, let's get back to that episode. This is the Faro helmet by Unit 1. It's a smart helmet that I bought about 12 months ago, and in this conversation I speak to the Chief Product Officer of Unit 1, and I ask the question, why does a helmet need to be smart? Now, as some of you know, I'm a cargo bike dad, and I use my bike primarily as my central mode of transport. I use it absolutely everywhere. We've probably clocked up close to 3,000 kilometers in the 18 months since we've had that bike. Now, I came across Unit 1 when I was searching for a helmet. My last helmet was at that point where it was just probably needing to be replaced. And I said, well, do I really need a smart helmet? And I asked that question to Juan, why smart helmets are important. Is this something that we really should be thinking about? Now, I have three key things that I think are really, really powerful for you, the listeners of the Human-Centered Design podcast. And the first, being an outsider into this space actually was a competitive advantage for Unit 1. They had to pivot during the pandemic because originally they made ski helmets. Now, obviously all the ski fields closed down and they had to enter this new market pretty much with a gun to their head. How do they do it? They leaned into 6 months of dedicated design research, and they basically heard this problem reoccurring, that people want to wear a helmet, but they want to wear a helmet that's nice. And the beautiful thing about Unit 1 is the helmets look absolutely fantastic. They feel fantastic. And generally speaking, they work fantastic as well. So we talk about that unfair and that competitive advantage. The second thing is, if you're sharing the roads with drivers, there's a communication channel that we need to tap into. We need to design for that ecosystem. For cars, that's, blinkers and, tail lights, whatever you want to call it. Indicators is probably the right word for moving left and right. So they place that same language system into the helmet, which is what I use, and it works fantastically. Sometimes, obviously, people don't understand what it is because the mental model isn't there. But what Unit 1 are doing is now introducing that mental model to the drivers as it scales across the globe, in the hope that drivers will start to understand that there's actually a new way of communicating from helmets to the drivers. And the third thing is, support calls are not a cost. They're an opportunity. I spoke to Anna because I had a problem with the app and I was trying to connect my app to the helmet, and I was like, why do I need to have to connect an app to my helmet? It actually is very, very powerful when you do it, but I was struggling with this part of it. I became such a brand ambassador. I bought 3 of these helmets, 2 for my kids, 1 for my wife, and I wanted to connect them all into one app. And we ran through all of the options. Halfway through it, I said, Anna, I'm so sorry for taking up your time. I know this must be costing Unit 1 a huge amount of money. He said, no, not at all. The way we see it is, this isn't a cost, this is an opportunity. We track all of these conversations and it goes right back around to product development. Of course, this is music to our ears. Everyone in the Human-Centered Design Network and the podcast are nodding ahead in approval. It's a great conversation. I hope you're going to enjoy it. Check out Unit 1 and let me know how you like it. Juan, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast. A very warm welcome to This Is HCD. Maybe we'll start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do.
Absolute pleasure to be here, Gerry. Thank you for having me. So I'm the co-founder of Unit 1. I am an industrial designer by trade. I specialized in product design. Originally went into ID to become a car designer. I was just, decided that I was going to be doing that, and I fell in love with product design kind of along the way. I still love cars. That stuff doesn't just go away. But I never looked back, and it was product for me at the moment I stepped out of uni.
Likewise, I'm an industrial designer by background as well. I know you're an industrial designer and you're based in Buenos Aires. How long have you been doing Unit 1, in particular, this business that we're going to be speaking about at length today because it's about smart helmets, and I'd be interested in the story about this business.
There's plenty to tell. I'll give you that. We started in 2017, so it's soon will be 10 years. It's unbelievably how
Nice.
long this has been. Although we started in a completely different space, though.
Right.
We started in snow sports.
Ah.
I'm a lifelong skier. I've always been at home in the snow, and naturally, the first product that I kind of set out to build was one that I knew a lot about, and I had experienced the issues that I wanted to solve myself. So the classical, you being the user for your own product puts you in that unfair advantage type deal. And the first product we created, the product we built Unit 1 around, was a ski and snowboard helmet.
Nice.
Back in 2017.
Back in 2017. And what happened with that?
Well, we did the whole loop. We designed the product, started building the brand, raised capital for it, built a supply chain, went to China, figured that out. That was scary. Built that, manufactured a first batch, sold it, manufactured a second batch, sold it, and then we were about to we solved a bunch of issues from one generation of product to the next. We were about to start scaling that production, and then the pandemic hits, and every ski resort gets closed.
Close to COVID, yeah. It's a nice pivot because we wouldn't be here if you didn't do that pivot, because I'm not a skier. I've never skied. But what drew me to Unit 1 was I'm a parent and I have two beautiful children and I have a cargo bike. Dublin over the last decade or more has moved massively towards a cycling culture, and there's still an awful lot more work to do. But Dublin City being one of my main clients, I get to hear about the vision of what it's going to be like in Dublin in the next 10, 15 years in terms of a cycling culture. And I wanted to get myself a decent helmet. The last one that I bought in Sydney, which is about 10 years ago when I lived there. And I came across these beautiful helmets. And I guess one of the first things that my brain was kind of drawn to was do I need a smart helmet? Why a smart helmet? And I guess you went through that situation as well, that question. What do you say to people in terms of do we need a smart helmet?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a fine question. I would have asked the same question were I in your shoes, by the way.
Yeah.
When we went into the space, we were kind of thrust into it, right? Because we were thinking imagine you're free falling and you have to figure that stuff out along the way. And so we had one product that was seasonal that we couldn't sell for the foreseeable future, which kind of thrust us into the cycling scene. And we were complete outsiders to this space, which in a way is a disadvantage, but it also sort of an advantage as well.
Yeah.
Because I got to ask that same question you are asking me now back then. And the answer was simple, is because there's much more to be done for keeping a rider safe than just protecting your head. There's just much more to it. Of course, protecting your head can save your life. And that's what most helmets do, and that's fantastic. And you can do a good or so-so or great job at it. There's a gradient to that. I also learned that along the way. And we made sure to master that before anything else. We're going to do impact protection above the cut, best in class. But then the broader question we asked is, what else can we do? Because these people are cyclists. They're not wearing helmets because they think they don't need them. They're not wearing helmets because they dislike the product. They don't want to put a cheap plastic bucket on their heads. There was not much done around. I mean, you're an ID. There was not much love put into helmets as a proper product. It was almost an afterthought of cycling, which is a bit of a lost opportunity there. And once we opened up that box, then it turns out you can do all sorts of things for a rider to keep them safe beyond just protecting their head well.
Yeah.
And that's what a smart helmet can do.
Absolutely. And when you go in and you buy a bike, if you're going to get a cargo bike or an e-bike like I do, because I want to be able to travel at distance and at speed with my 2 kids in a safe space, I'm suddenly responsible for these 2 lives on the back of my bike. And I'm like, if I have a crash, one of the things that I was like, okay, that is super smart. The ability to text my wife and say, this is the location where your husband has had an accident, just so you're aware. Because, you've heard, many times that people having accidents, and then the first time that they hear about it is when the police call them and all that kind of stuff. It's much more traumatic. So you're moving into spaces that are beyond just the physical product. You're moving into the experience side of design, which was a huge shift. I was like, actually, you know what? I'm not just buying into a product here. I'm buying into a safety system. And that was one of the things that kind of drew my attention to it. I was like, okay, they're thinking differently. They're moving in this space that I believe is really important. So it's smart to a point, but like not in terms of a smart home, if you want, like if you're going to use that word smart. So it ticked an awful lot of boxes for me. But I'd like to understand a little bit more of kind of the journey you got to that point, especially if you've got investors and you're like, hey, look, we want to move into these different things. What were the obstacles that you had to go around to convince people that this is what people are going to want and need?
Well, they absolutely hated the idea
at
first.
Of course they did. Why would they hate that idea? Because I can tell you now from a parent perspective that that's probably the bit that got me over the line.
I mean, I was talking about the pivot into cycling. You have to understand this from their view. They invested into a safety company for snow sports. Of course, cycling was at one point had to be considered because there's no such thing as a helmet company that only does skiing or only does cycling.
Yeah.
But the change was sudden. It was certainly forced. This was a gun to our head, not an initiative that we had from scratch. Fernan, my co-founder, he was the one that was the bravest as to really get us to do something about it. He was the one who pushed the pivot the hardest. And funnily enough, he had to convince me first. I was the skier. I was the guy in love with the snow. That wanted to build this, had this very, very clear vision of we wanted to build. It was on the snow. So after he convinced me, then we had to convince the investors, and it was more of an FYI. If I'm being absolutely honest. Yeah, it was. We didn't have a choice, man. A gun to our heads, limited funds. What are you going to do with them? Are you going to use them to build more ski and snowboard helmets that you don't know whether or not you're going to be able to sell them for the next 2 seasons? That's a death sentence for any startup. So we kind of grabbed whatever money we had left and we put it into the development of our first cycling helmet. And they had to play along. They got to tag along for the ride, of course, and we kept them up to speed. But their first fear was, but what's it going to have? What's it going to do? You guys are your guys are skiers. Do you know anything about cycling? And I'm like, no, that's not the point. We can learn about this stuff. And we spent 6 months talking to users, understanding the place and the use case and the problems that the cyclists had to live with.
Yeah.
And that was I think a blessing in disguise because it gave us very, very clear, like the industry was screaming at us. It's like, this is the problem. People don't wear helmets because they don't like them. They have an adoption barrier here that is stupid.
Absolutely.
Because people, I mean,
it's a visceral thing though, Juan. It's once you like, in Ireland, you had to wear a helmet. Not everyone basically did it. Like, but the police would say it to you if they stopped you. In Australia, when I lived there, helmets weren't mandatory, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. And like Sydney in particular was a particularly tricky city to cycle in. So I came from that grounding that, you were encouraged to wear a helmet. A helmet will save your life. Those kind of taglines were always sprayed at us in school. So it wasn't much of a leap for me to say, actually, you know what, I do need a helmet. I want to reaffirm those behaviors to my children by displaying the fact that I'm wearing a helmet when I'm on a bike, because I'd hate for them to have an accident. And, sometimes it can be life-threatening. And so for me, it was really kind of like I'm walking the walk. But if I look at what's available to someone, I'm 6'2", and there's just not that many cool looking helmets. And like the piss pot helmet, as I call it, like the skateboarders' helmets, would have been what I would have had before. The kind of mod looking helmets from the 70s. Because I just didn't want to wear that gimpy looking piece of plastic that looks like a pigeon's nest on my head. So
that's a good way to put it.
Like there's a quote for you.
That's fantastic.
But it's the truth. So most people care about these things now. Like they want to have something that really kind of is an extension of themselves. And it was very much true for me. And it's a really nice kind of bridge into where I want to ask you more about, like that whole smart connectedness with cyclists. What does that ecosystem look like from your perspective as the CEO or your CPO? I think you are in Unit 1.
Correct.
What's the future like once you've got a connected device on your head?
Yeah. So once you're over the hurdle of, I don't want to say solving, but helping with helmet adoption, and once we've built a helmet that is beautiful enough and well built that you actually want to wear it, we check the first box. And that's what originally I think drew you in. This is actually, someone gave a shit about this product, unlike every other one I've held. So there's something different here. Once you've done that, the second problem that was screaming at us was they're still unsafe. There's still, this whole user experience of, traversing a city to get to work is riddled with problems. We still see riders getting involved in accidents, especially in the city, especially in the early hours of the morning or late hour of the night, where visibility is reduced. We still see drivers not seeing cyclists, especially in cities that are not well prepared. Not everyone lives in Amsterdam. For the rest of us mortals, we have to deal with actually sharing the road with drivers and with cars and buses and scary 3-ton vehicles that don't really care if you're there or not. Yeah. If they even know about you being there in the first place. So the smart element comes to kind of bridge that gap. We said there is much more to be done in terms of keeping the rider safe, and we're going to use tech to do that. So we're going to check the box of the traditional version of safety, that's impact protection. We're going to check that box in a very serious way. MIPS, we embrace the new certifications for higher speeds, the one that everyone else is ignoring, by the way, because it's more
just
difficult.
On that, MIPS, that's a terminology, an industry terminology. Like, let's talk about that a little bit more, because my friends were like, "Does it have MIPS?" And I'm like, I had to go Google it. So
it gets thrown around quite a bit, but people don't really know what it does, right?
Let's talk about it.
Well, MIPS is multiple impact protection system, or multi-direction impact protection system. What it basically does, it's a low friction liner that sits between the helmet and your head. Yeah. And what that does, it allows the helmet some degree of rotation in all directions. Because you see, most impacts on your bike are not linear. You're not just hitting the pavement, dead on, straight, like in a lab. You're probably turning and twisting, and it's mostly rotational impacts.
Yeah.
And EPS, which is the stuff in your helmet that absorbs energy, part of the shell, does a great job at absorbing impact.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't do it as much as a great job when it comes to rotational energy. It's not equipped to do that well. MIPS is designed to absorb rotational energy. This little movement that I described in the middle of a crash will take excess energy that would otherwise go into your brain and absorb that into motion, turn it into motion, kinetic energy. And it's literally not going into your head. So it makes helmets safer.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it does.
So it's by default, the Unit 1 helmets have got MIPS across the ranges. Isn't that correct?
Our adult helmets have MIPS. We are working on a MIPS version of our kids helmet. The problem with that is price.
Yeah.
There's somewhere written, I guess, there's a €100, 100 quid limit to what you will spend on a kid's helmet. And MIPS would break that barrier. And there's very strong indication, at least we've gotten from our retail partners, that people won't pay $120 for the MIPS version,
for that,
which is
absolutely,
it's a bummer, but I still want to do it. I think we have to.
I think there's a sort of a transition between a child and an adult, like a tween kind of version. In my perspective, I think I was saying to you beforehand, everyone in my house now, I became what's the word? I'm not going to use the I word that's used on TikTok, an influencer, but I became an ambassador, an unmerited ambassador for the brand. Because this is what happens when you start sticking lights in the front and the back of your helmet, and you've got these kind of shrewd indicators that you go left and right. People stare. People stare. People stop and they kind of go, I like your helmet. And in Dublin, like in certain parts of Dublin, it's a bit rougher than other parts, is how I'd say it. And people go, I like your helmet. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a threat or not. And I was like, yeah, thanks, man. And I have to cycle off quicker than I probably usually would. But everyone in this house has got Unit 1 helmets. So as a result, the kids get, asked quite a lot. And I think that's probably one of the strongest ways of marketing your brand. Is that what you're seeing at the moment, where almost like your customers become your best salespeople?
It is 100%. What's happening? We get reports because people write back, and they like, people stop me on every day I go out. Someone stops me in a traffic light and asks about my helmet. I get, and this is by far my favorite type of comment. I get drivers roll down their windows and go like, "That's awesome." Those are the think about the relationship between drivers and cyclists. It's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
So if you get the enemy, so to speak, to say, "Awesome, way to go! I can see you now, and I can rest easy that I know where you are, or I know you're about to turn, or I know you're slowing down, and I can give you that extra room." Coming from them, I wear it as a badge of honor. That means a job well done.
It's funny on that point. Like the trigger for me was like, I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids. I put them to bed every night with my wife. By the end of it, I'm usually wrecked and I'm in front of the TV watching some sort of like TV show. So I'm not out an awful lot. So I like to cycle. I'm not going to brag here, but I may as well, because it's the only thing of fitness that I can really get my head around. I did about 3,500 kilometers on the bike over the last 14 to 15 months. A lot of cycling. And
it is a lot.
But I found myself out. I went to see my friend Molly and Gerry Dunn. They were doing this event in the city around probably July or August of last year. And I cycled in, parked the bike in a car park, had dinner, and then went to the event. And then I realized afterwards, the sun is setting and I don't have any lights, because when I went in, it's summertime, it was bright. And then I was suddenly at nighttime and I felt really exposed. I was like, okay, I'm on the road here. And even though my bike has a few little reflectors and lights, it's always at that tricky point where it's not really nighttime. It's not really daytime.
That's tricky. It's tricky for drivers too. The kind of the twilight.
Absolutely, because like, is that a bike person in front of me? So that's what kind of triggered me, to look for something that's an integrated thing. It's one less thing to worry about. Like, do I have lights? I have lights now built into my bike. They're also Unit 1 as well, by the way. And I that's what kind of got me over the line. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, and we discussed it about it before, they've got, it's such an advanced product that with the indicators on the back of it. Now, I should disclose, I don't want to seem like I'm a complete nerd. I don't have these kind of pointed out indicators like that are pointing like arrows. They're really beautifully integrated into the helmet. The motorists, I believe, don't see those, okay, because they don't have the mental model for what is happening yet. They're not looking at a cyclist's helmet, say which way are they going. They're still looking at the hand gestures for that. Mm-hmm. What are the steps from a business perspective that you think is going to happen next? Now, is there anything that you can do as a business to kind of encourage that mental model to evolve?
Well, we're happy to surf this wave, and we're fully understand that there's going to be steps to it.
Yeah.
This is still early days. A couple of years ago, a smart helmet wasn't a thing. For a lot of people, it still isn't, by the way.
Yeah.
This is super early days, and we're trying to build a category here. Yeah. Now, the logic is sound. If you're going to be sharing the roads with drivers, you might as well speak their language. How do they talk to each other? They use turn signals and they use brake lights. They also honk, but we're not going to pick that up.
The non-verbal stuff.
Yeah. And when it's dark, a hand signal is something very, very difficult to see for a driver, even behind you, because your arms are not lit up. So step one is you build the system that will enable you to speak their language. We did that. Step two, and by the way, at the step we're right in now, I'm thankful that they're seeing the rider in front of them. Mm-hmm. I'm thankful that the turn signal, if anything, is getting their attention because it's unusual. You don't have lights at that level. These lights sit above the roofs of cars. These lights sit above other cyclists even. So it's going to be the only light at that level. That in itself gives you the novelty of, what the hell am I looking at? This is unusual. Yeah. Which is something we want. We want to break, their attention. We want to get it.
Yeah.
And then the turn signal adds a layer to that. It's like, what am I looking at? It's a blinky thing. It's going left. Is this a turn signal? Is it not? But all that process, even though they're not 100% sure what they're looking at, already gave you what you wanted, which is you have a driver behind you, fully aware of your presence, that is kind of devising what the hell he stopped to think. He stopped to think. Mm-hmm. To me, that is half of the job already.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that one of my, I told a load of people that I was speaking to Unit 1 today, because a lot of people, especially around the kids' school, they see the helmet and, it's now got a smart thing where if it's a little bit dark, the lights go on and they think that's super cool. But one of the people say, if it's a smart helmet, what about, are you afraid that they're tracking you? And this was an intrinsic response. And I said, look, I don't believe Unit 1 are tracking my usage and my data. And they says, oh, well, if it's a smart helmet, they might be tracking like the on and offs and like the locations and stuff. First of all, are you? I don't believe you are.
We're not. No, we're not.
Yeah. And second of all, is there something about the word smart that is somewhat of a limitation to what you could potentially do with this?
100%. We don't like the word. We used it, and we're trying to wean it down. We used it because it was the closest possible description that we had.
Yeah.
And in people's minds, this is a smart helmet. To me, I call it simply the evolution of helmets. I think that helmets are bound to evolve this way, to
100%.
embed more and more tech and become safer because of that.
Yeah.
They call it smart. What's smart and what isn't? People call anything with a couple of lights smart. That's not smart. You
Yeah.
duct tape a couple of lights onto a helmet. That doesn't make it smart. So
The connected
instead
nature.
of getting into, sorry.
It's the connected nature, I think, like the fact that your helmet and your phone can communicate with each other. That's where you start moving into the connected smart pieces of, if it does this, it does that.
That is correct.
And I guess that's where my question is going. But just going back to that question, Juan, and again, I'm probably encroaching a little bit on your vision and your potential future products. But where do you see the kind of segment of smart helmets going? Like, what's the potential there other than selling lots of products? You know, what other things can we do? Because more and more people are going to be cycling, especially in modern cities, as they invest into the infrastructures that, you know, people are crying out for, especially in Dublin. We want more spaces for cyclists to happen, to be able to cycle safely. Are there any more kind of things that we can see, you know, entering the market from your perspective of being a kind of an expert in this space?
I think that the first thing we're going to witness as looking at the market is smart helmets. I hate the term. I have to change it myself.
Call it smellmets.
Yeah.
I'm a brand expert.
Helmets are going to start using more and more technology to become safer, as everything else probably is becoming safer or better one way or another with technology. Helmets are no exception. Think of what happened to bikes think of bikes and e-bikes. I see a similar sort of evolution with helmets. I think that is already started and there's no stopping it. And that helmets can become unequivocally safer through technology.
Yeah.
Don't just think lights and sensors. Of course, lights and sensors, but think materials, think impact absorption, think smart ways to deflect impact, think connectivity to drivers, cities, infrastructure, pedestrians, you name it. There's so much, there's literally not a limit to what you can do. So that I think is already happening. Yeah. And I'd like to think we're kind of leading the charge with a few other companies, and incredibly proud of that.
Yeah. One of the pieces on Reddit, I don't know if you're a big Reddit user. I am. And in my research for this, I found a couple of pieces on Reddit, I believe, saying the Unit 1 helmet would be perfect if it included speakers for me to listen to my music on the go. And this is what I would refer to as, like, it's a balanced decision. Like, you know, you're promoting safety, and then you're also kind of like trying to, you know, introduce a need that people want to be able to listen to music when they're cycling. So I looked around over the last week because I knew we were going to be speaking this week. And I think I'd probably say about 20% of people, myself included, have shocks, the bone conducting kind of headphones in. So I can still hear, I've got all my peripheral, kind of sound all around me, but I can still listen to music at a very, very low volume. Can you walk me through, and I'm not saying you are doing that, I have no idea, but if that was a conversation where there was an integration going to happen, how do you balance that from a CPO perspective? You're a chief product officer. How do you, is that something that would be discussed? Or is it just a given, like, oh, the customers are asking for it, we must give it? How do you navigate those decisions?
It's not as simple as that. We're not going to blindly follow a trend or a bunch of people asking for something. We listen to everything, and I'm talking to customers daily. I sneak into the Instagram account and I'll reply to comments. I'll speak I'll respond to DMs because I love it. I love to, not lose sight of that. Yeah. But I think our duty as a safety company is to always put that safety first. So we have to first figure out if this is something worth doing. I know people might want it. People can ask for whatever they want, but whether or not we should respond, that's an entirely different story.
Yeah.
So going to your question, music is tricky. It's not really safety, right? It's not really the safest thing to listen to music while you're riding. But if you're going to do it, it might as well be in a way that is safe as it can get. It might as well be in a way that preserves your peripheral, let's say, awareness. And that's certainly something that we can do. But it doesn't even stop there. Think about the uses you can get out of non-obtrusive audio.
Absolutely.
You can
phone calls and
turn-by-turn directions, not looking down to your phone or taking it out of your pocket every traffic light to figure out where the hell you are.
True.
Phone calls, work calls, people take from their bike. This is a thing. This is a proper use case that is definitely worth looking into, and we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, because I said I'm going to take an hour of your time, and I'm aware like we're getting close to that time, and I like to keep to that time. The reason why we're here, okay, is not because I bought a helmet and I emailed kind of going, "Hey, I have a podcast. I want to interview you." There was something that I would refer to as a kind of a special moment. Okay, you updated your app, which I already thought was brilliant. Okay, and the app became from brilliant into even more brilliant. But I received an email saying, if you've got any problems with your upgrade, schedule time with somebody to speak to, and they'll come and help you. Now, me being a service designer, I kind of wanted to hack that. Okay, I was like, yeah, let's see. Now, I did have a problem with the upgrade of, kind of the helmet and all that kind of stuff. And surprise, I was like expecting it to not be available in my time zone. But there was somebody available in my time zone, and there was somebody available a couple of days out called Anna, who was remarkable. And we sat down. She goes, "Oh, what's going on?" We had a Zoom call, and I said, "Okay, I'm having problems connecting this to this." And it was an opportunity for both of us to speak. And they said, "Oh, what do you do?" They noticed that I've got a lot of microphones and stuff. I mentioned the podcast, but we spent probably about 35 minutes. Okay. And I said, I need to ask you, how can you afford to spend 35 minutes on your customers when they've got a problem? And Anna's response was, "Oh, we don't see this as a problem. We see this as an opportunity." And I wrote that down, and you can be like, "Oh, good work, Anna. Good work."
Because I will right after this.
But I loved that. And I spoke about it to a couple of my service designy friends, and they're like, "Wow, that is really insane." They said, "Look, we wanted to make sure that you could get your helmet back on the road as quickly as possible. And also, we now know that there was a problem with this. We'll track it down, and we know we can try and see if other people have got it, and we can try and fix them as well." So it was a continuous learning. And that to me is one of the foundational pieces for a strong human-centered design company. Can you talk to me a little bit more around the decision? Like, because you're weighing that up there, saying, actually, you know what, we'll offer a Zoom call to our customers. Most people will be pushing them to an FAQ page and maybe a YouTube video at best, but never a Zoom call where it's 30 minutes long each.
Well, I like that you went through the motions, and I like that Anna's great. I like that you met her, you talked to her. She's brilliant, and I've hopped on many of these calls myself as well. The reason why we do it is we're at the building stage. This is early days for the category, but it's also early days for us.
Hmm.
It's a privilege to get half an hour on the phone with you, wherever you are, and understand what's going on, understand what you want to use the product for. What are you failing to do that we can help you with? And there's a reason that most of our customers become this secret, ambassadors to the brand. And it's because we've established a real connection between them, just because of the fact that we've talked to them, or we replied to a comment, or we showed up to a call, or we spent 45 minutes with an elderly person, helping them pair 3 Bluetooth devices to each other, which is no easy feat sometimes. So the reason we still do it is because the amount of insight we get from those calls, the relationships we build with those people, that then in turn they turn around and they kind of mirror that with their family and their friends and their colleagues. Yeah. That is infectious in the best possible sense of the word. It is infectious. It spreads outward. So every one of these calls, like the one you had, then transforms into this little pinpoint of a spot, in your case in Ireland, that will start spreading outwards in the best possible way. People will stop you in your tracks. You'll have good things to say about it, about us. People ask about your helmet. You'll take it off and you'll do the explaining because you like it, because you like the people behind it, and because there's a human behind it that you've met, you've talked to.
And that is like one of the most powerful things. Like it's a great example of the benefit of mixing what we refer to as user research or customer research and blending it together to become ambassadors. Now, Juan, we're at the end of the episode. So is there anything else that you want us to cover off, or anything else you want to give a shout out to, anything maybe that's coming up for Unit 1?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very exciting kind of position where the products are doing fantastic. Sales are going up across the globe. We're really happy with the way that we were received by the market. Just a month ago, it was announced, something that I've been personally working on over the past 3 years, was quietly announced, and we're about to do the whole, announcement ourselves. We started to work with Bosch. Bosch is a big player in the cycling industry. They do the motors and the systems for virtually every e-bike out there, a lot of them. And the reason we got into that in the first place was, and you're going to love this from a human design kind of approach perspective. What we're trying to do here is we need to work with the bike. If we don't work with the bike, then it's a missed opportunity. Bikes are smart, helmets are smart, might as well connect them, and then they can share on their smartness. They can do stuff for each other. And the ultimate beneficiary is always going to be the rider. We tried this very wacky, crazy formula 3 years ago. For the first time ever, we connected to a bike. We connected a helmet to a bike like you would connect AirPods to your phone.
Yeah.
Sounds simple enough, but it had never been done until we came along. So we did that, and we explored that connection, and it turns out it's amazing. You can do a lot of crazy stuff, but for the most part, we can make the ride safer, more connected. Yeah. And we kind of embraced that and said, all right, how do we do it with everyone? And it turns out, well, you can't, because most bikes use the Bosch system. They don't have full control of their own brains, let's say. So we went to the brains and we said, Bosch, we want to make this happen. And Bosch, of course, is gigantic. It took us 3 years to get it. But we're finally there. We're the first helmet brand that is compatible with the Bosch system. This is happening in a month. It's being released.
So what will enable you to do then once you're connected with, if you want, the brains?
That's it. It's a never-ending evolution that we can upgrade over time. But think native brake lights. You can unlock the bike with your helmet. You can. There's no such thing as turning the helmet on and off anymore. You just turn on the bike, and the helmet will follow suit. Think native turn signals. We have crash alert. We have sensors. The bike can piggyback off those sensors. We can let the bike know you've crashed in a much more reliable way than the bike's crash sensors. And we can build something together, et cetera, et cetera.
Think about the when you say it out loud. There's
Exactly.
So watch this space is what you're saying for Unit 1. And look,
Yes.
I'm going to put a link to Unit 1 in the show notes for anyone who's interested. Like the link is in the show notes. We're discussing like if there's a potential, kind of a discount code or something like that. If there is and we have it in time, we'll drop it into the show notes as well, folks. But also remember, there's lots of other exclusive discount codes. If you just go to thisishcity.com and put in your email address, you'll get into the partners dashboard and you get access to some other discounts as well. We'd love to include Unit 1 in there and promote you, because I truly believe in what you're building here. It's no longer just, as you're saying, like a helmet. It's a whole safety ecosystem. So kudos to you, your two other co-founders, and of course to I'm the number one fan for Anna, who is a remarkable ambassador for your own brand. So a big shout out to Anna for setting this up, and Sophia as well. Thanks so much for your time, Juan.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.